I decided that, the next stream is going to be, anyway, the next stream, I'm going to have my old model back. But I wanted to chill with this one for like a sec, because I'm so happy with it. But, oh gosh. Me, I am. I am a menace to society. Oh gosh. Okay. I wish I had, like, I'll talk about my new model later. This is OSAMU DAZAI, and we're gonna do DAZAI. Whew. The thing is, I don't even have like a lesson plan or something. I'm out here, I'm gonna be spitballing. And that's how you know it's bad. Cause like, the moment I start spitballing, it's not gonna end well. It is not going to end well. So, hello everyone. Welcome to the absolute chaos that is about to happen. Oh boy. I want to see how this is running on my things. Is it running well? I mean, it's a little bit laggy, but it's fine. Let me like look away real quick. I'm gonna lose my mind. So, fun fact. OSAMU DAZAI is a man who was born in, I think he was born in, he was born in 1909. So he was born in the World War era, and that explains a lot. I'm gonna be so honest. And a lot of his books are after World War II. And I mean, he died in 1948. Yeah, he died in 1948. 1949, 1948. All these books say that he died in 1948, so I'm just gonna go with that. But the way this man, how do I explain the vibe of these books? So, if you do not know, OSAMU DAZAI is a very influential author who, you know, wrote a lot. If that makes sense. Of course it makes sense, because he wrote. He's a writer. That's why he's in Bungo Stray Dogs. He's a writer. But OSAMU DAZAI is a very influential writer, especially in Japan, and only a few of his books have been translated into English, which is why I only have a few. I specifically have Schoolgirl, A Shameful Life, The Setting Sun, The Flowers of Buffoonery, and Self-Portraits. Oh, not to mention No Longer Human, because of course I have No Longer Human. If you guys don't know, OSAMU DAZAI, again, lived through World War II, and there's a lot of that, and he went through a communist phase. It's weird to say that, but it's true. He went through a communist phase, and then basically became spiritualistic, tried to commit double suicide multiple times in his life. His last attempt ended up in both him and his quote-unquote lover dying. Although, yeah, but that was after he published No Longer Human. Which, if you don't know what No Longer Human is, it is... It's... If you watch Bungo Stray Dogs, if you watch anime, right? Bungo Stray Dogs is about authors, like actual authors becoming anime characters with their books, becoming powers that they have. OSAMU DAZAI's is, well, No Longer Human, because it was a very influential book. And, fun fact, OSAMU DAZAI even mentions, Fyodor Dostoevsky? I can't pronounce his last name. Dostoevsky, I think. I think that's how you pronounce it. I don't know, don't quote me on that. I'm trying to scooch closer. I am so far away from my desk right now that it's uncomfortable. Okay. Ah! Okay. So, and I forget which one it mentions Fyodor in, but DAZAI does mention him along with the Metamorphosis, which was something, but No Longer Human was the last book that DAZAI wrote, or at least that he published, before he died. I want that to sink in, because after he published No Longer Human, he went and committed double suicide. And when I tell you, these books do not shy away from the fact that they are a depiction of how DAZAI views himself and how he views the world. And it's kind of sad. I will not lie. It is actually very sad and very disappointing, because he's a good writer, and because of World War II, or just his own mental health issues that were going unchecked, he believed himself to be the most foul of human beings. And when I tell you this is a sentiment that is mirrored throughout all of his books, no matter who's the protagonist, it shows. And the thing is, while reading the synopsis for these books, right, DAZAI, there are two characters that are obviously the protagonists of these stories. And one is Yozo Oba, and I hate him. I hate him for a few reasons, but I'll be reading the synopsis of the books and then going through all of it with you guys. But, and then there's also Kazuko, I think. Yeah, both. So there's two books about Kazuko and at least 4 books about Yozo. Or just a collection of people like Yozo. And it's weird. I didn't expect that. I thought these were all instrumental music, guys. I didn't know there was one with a song. Instrumental. Please, I'm begging you. Okay, we're good. Everything's fine. Everything's fine, guys. But Osamu Dazai, he goes through these phases, right? And there are a few. And then he ends with No Longer Human, which is all about Yozo. And it's this literally caused me a breakdown in the middle of Barnes and Noble. That sounds so silly, but I did. I had a breakdown in the middle of Barnes and Noble because of these books. I was with my friend and we were just walking around Barnes and Noble because we're nerds. And when I tell you, me and my friend, we were just walking around, we were looking at thrillers, and we were walking around, and then we go to the fiction, and everything's fine. And then, it looks at me, and it goes, "Hey, Con, Con, there's another, and I'm like, what do you mean there's another? I look over, and it's self-portraits, because self-portraits was just recently translated into English, and started being sold in stores. And I went, what? What do you mean there's more? What do you mean there's more? Of course I knew DAZAI had written more books than just No Longer Human. But Self-Portraits was in the same, like, cover style as No Longer Human, and immediately that set off red flags. Of course, I end up picking up books that end up having very similar cover styles, but you can tell that they're different books. Like, a certain author will have a certain cover style, and I mean, most of these were published or revamped after DAZAI had, passed. So there's a little bit of a difference there. But what I found out is that Self-Portraits, I believe, was published after he was dead. Yeah, that one was published after he was dead, I think. I checked the dates for when they were published, but I find that it's never, honest, especially with translated stuff. But when I was looking at, like, the timeline, No Longer Human was published, and then Self-Portraits was, but No Longer Human was published in 1849, and Self-Portraits was published in 1949, which means he was dead before Self-Portraits was released, which meant people were going through his shit and published stuff that he never wanted published, or didn't want published, or just didn't finish, which you can't do that to somebody. That's an artist. I mean, an artist with words, not, like, it is still pen and paper, but, like, not with, like, shapes and colors. They're an artist with words, and that kind of makes me angry, because DAZAI wanted his last, like, his last book to be No Longer Human. Because No Longer Human, reading it back, sounds like a suicide note. I will be so honest. It sounds like a suicide note. It's so... And it's talking about all these thoughts and feelings he has, and nobody shamed him on it, because nobody really could. Nobody shamed him on it because they really couldn't. And so I found the publishing years, like the rate of publishing, and I will be putting self-portraits before No Longer Human because No Longer Human was his last book, and I will stand by that. Anyway, so the publishing order is Schoolgirl, A Shameful Life, The Flowers of Buffoonery, and you're going to hear the word buffoonery a lot, and I mean a lot. And then there's The Setting Sun, Self-Portraits, and No Longer Human. And when I tell you I'm so scared for Schoolgirl, I haven't read all of these books yet, but it's... oh my gosh. So, this is what it says on the back, right? Schoolgirl, the novella that first propelled DAZAI into the literary elite of post-war Japan. Essentially the start of DAZAI's career, Schoolgirl gained notoriety for its iconic and inventive use of language. Now it illuminates the prevalent social structures of a lost time, as well as the struggle of the individual against them, a theme that occupied DAZAI's life both personally and professionally. This new translation preserves the playful language of the original and offers the reader a new window into the mind of one of the greatest Japanese authors of the 20th century. Oh my gosh. This scared me. And then there's A Shameful Life, which, on the back, says, this new translation of Ningen Shikaku, the most enduring work of a giant of post-war Japanese literature, offers a revelatory portrait of a young man's struggle to survive in a world he cannot comprehend. His doomed love affairs, feverish musings on humanity, and constant fear of exposing his true being haunt the pages of his quote-unquote journal, betray a slow descent into self-destruction approximating the life of the author himself. There's that. And you're going to see this again and again and again, because that was the first book of Yozo Oba. And I'm pretty sure Schoolgirl is Kazuko. I think Kazuko. I think it's Kazuko. Okay. The Flowers of Buffoonery. The Flowers of Buffoonery opens in a seaside sanatorium where Yozo Oba, the narrator of No Longer Human, is convalescing after a failed suicide attempt. Friends and family visit him, and nurses and police drift in and out of his room. Against this dispiriting backdrop, Yozo and his visitors try to maintain a lighthearted and even clownish atmosphere, playing cards, smoking cigarettes, vying for attention, cracking jokes, and trying to make each other laugh. DAZAI is known for delving into the darkest corners of human consciousness, but in The Flowers of Buffoonery he pokes fun at these same emotions, the follies and hardships of youth, love, and of self-hatred and depression. A glimpse into the lives of a group of outsiders in pre-war Japan, The Flowers of Buffoonery is a fresh and darkly humorous addition to Osamu Dazai's masterful and intoxicating Aovir. Don't know how to pronounce that word. But this book is a quote-unquote prequel of No Longer Human. But the fact of the matter is, that is not. This isn't a prequel story. This isn't a prequel. This is literally a deep dive into one of the things that No Longer Human goes into. Like, No Longer Human specifically mentions this sanatorium after he committed suicide, after he tried to, and he lived. He lied to the police for no reason whatsoever. He was still in jail. He was in the sanatorium because he tried to commit suicide. But Flowers of Buffoonery makes me think of how he calls himself a clown multiple times in No Longer Human. But it's, oh my gosh. Anyway, that was the second book of Ozoyaba. And then The Setting Sun. This powerful and tragic novel vividly paints life in a nation in social and moral crisis. Set in the early post-war years, it probes the destructive effects of war and the transition from a feudal Japan to an industrial society. OSAMU DAZAI died a suicide in 1948, but the influence of his book has made people of the setting sun. It is just the setting sun, not the people of the setting sun, don't worry about that. A permanent part of the Japanese language, and his heroine, Kazuko, a young aristocrat who deliberately abandons her class, a symbol of the enemy that pervades so much of the modern world. There's that. That's also for Kazuko, which is the second book for Kazuko, following the schoolgirl, and then there's self-portraits. Genuinely makes me upset. I don't know what to say. I'll talk about No Longer Human more, but like, Osamu Dazai based much of his fiction on his own life, and it's hard to imagine a richer source material. Excuse me. The scion of an aristocratic land-owning family, he was arrested for actively supporting the Communist Party. A star student, he flunked out of university, now world famous. He lived most of his life writing in poverty and obscurity, cut off from his family and dogged by alcoholism, drug addiction, self-loathing, and disastrous love affairs. Dazai, thanks in part to the self-mythology he himself propagated, has captivated generations. It's not a pretty picture, Ralph McCarthy notes in his introduction, but it's a fascinating one, and no one tells it better than Dazai himself. The 18 stories collected here, selected by McCarthy to form a kind of autobiography in fiction, paints the portrait of a multifaceted, complex, and supremely talented artist, a pioneer of alienation who is also a comic writer of rare brilliance. And that's the issue, right? Because Yozo is so obviously a fictionalization of himself, a character he made with all of the facets of himself, just so he could sidestep the criticism of himself. Now, No Longer Human is the one that a lot of people know. A lot of people know No Longer Human, and that's okay. That's okay. A lot of people know No Longer Human because it is, in, again, the anime Bungo Stray Dogs, it is Dazai's ability. He can null other abilities with his own ability called No Longer Human. And he no longer sees himself as human. And that's part of it. And I will say, Dazai is an extremely smart person, both as a writer and as a character in Bungo Stray Dogs. And I picked up No Longer Human because I was genuinely curious about what it could have said or anything, and then it threw me, and it makes me so angry to know that this man, this person, his writing's fantastic. Like, I'm not angry at the writing. I'm angry at how he portrays himself. Because there is no way you're that bad of a person Actually, you might be. Actually, in a world of Andrew Tate and Donald Trump, you might be. You might be. And I'll get into that when I start talking actually about the content of the books. Because I'll start reading a few. Because I have feelings. But those feelings are not good. But anyway, No Longer Human. The synopsis at the back. Portraying himself as a failure, the protagonist of Osamu Dazai's No Longer Human narrates a seemingly normal life, even while he feels himself incapable of understanding human beings. Obayozo's attempts to reconcile himself to the world around him began in early childhood, continue through high school, where he becomes a clown to mask his alienation, and eventually lead to a failed suicide attempt as an adult. Without sentimentality, he records the casual cruelties of life and its fleeting moments of human connection and tenderness. That. Hold on. I'm back. I'm sorry, I was muted. But No Longer Human was the one that I started my DAZAI journey with, which, ironically, starting with the end. But anyway, at the very least, The Flowers of Buffoonery and No Longer Human are both connected. There is a point where, in No Longer Human, I can stop reading, pick up The Flowers of Buffoonery, read all of that, and then pick up No Longer Human again, and there will not be a single jump. There will be no jump cuts. It will just be, hey, here's this, and going on with your life, which is insane to me. And of course, I don't know as much about the other books as I do No Longer Human, which is why we're going to start with No Longer Human. No Longer Human is obviously about No Longer Human starts with the translations introduction, and then the prologue, and then the first notebook. And now, see, the prologue is about a police officer investigating the, I think, death of Yozo. His prologue. The prologue is only a few pages. I can read it out. The prologue. I have seen 3 pictures of the man. The first, a childhood photograph, you might call it, shows him about the age of 10, a small boy surrounded by a great many women, his sisters and cousins, no doubt. He stands in brightly checked trousers by the edge of a garden pond. His head is tilted at an angle 30 degrees to the left, and his teeth are bared in an ugly smirk. Ugly? You may well question the word for insensitive people, that is to say, those indifferent to matters of beauty and ugliness, would mechanically comment with a bland, vacuous expression, "What an adorable little boy!" It is quite true that what commonly passes for adorable is sufficiently present in the child's face to give a modicum of meaning to the compliment, but I think that anyone who had ever been subjected to the least exposure of what makes for beauty would most likely toss the photograph to one side with a gesture employed in brushing away a caterpillar, and mutter in profound revulsion, "What a dreadful child!" Indeed, the more carefully you examine the child's smiling face, the more you feel an indescribable, unspeakable horror creeping over you. You see that it is actually not a smiling face at all. The boy has not a suggestion of a smile. Look at his tightly clenched fists if you want proof. No human being can smile with his fists doubled like that. It is a monkey, a grinning monkey face. The smile is nothing more than a puckering of ugly wrinkles. The photograph reproduces an expression so freakish, and at the same time so unclean, and even nauseating, that your impulse is to say, "What a wizened, hideous little boy." I have never seen a child with such an unaccountable expression. The face in the second snapshot is startlingly unlike the first. He is a student in this picture, although it is not clear whether it dates from high school or college days. At any rate, he is now extraordinarily handsome, but here again the face fails inexplicably to give the impression of belonging to a living human being. He wears a student's uniform, and a white handkerchief peeps from his breast pocket. He sits in a wicker chair with his legs crossed. Again he is smiling, this time not the wizened monkey's grin, but rather in a droid's little smile. And yet somehow it is not the smile of a human being. It utterly lacks substance. All of what we might call the heaviness of blood, or perhaps the solidarity of human life. It is not even a bird's weight. It is merely a blank sheet of paper, light as a feather, and it is smiling. The picture produces, in short, a sensation of complete artificiality. Pretense, insecurity, fatuousness, none of these words quite cover it. And of course, you couldn't dismiss it simply as dandyism. In fact, if you look carefully, you will begin to feel that there is something strangely unpleasant about this handsome young man. I have never seen a young man whose looks were so baffling, whose good looks were so baffling. The remaining photograph is the most monstrous of all. It is quite impossible in this one even to guess the age, though the hair seems to be streaked somewhat with gray. It was taken in the corner of an extraordinarily dirty room. You can plainly see in the picture how the wall is crumbling in 3 places. His small hands are held in front of him. This time he is not smiling. There is no expression whatsoever. The picture has a genuinely chilling, foreboding quality, as if it caught him in the act of dying as he sat before the camera, his hands held over a heater. That is not the only shocking thing about it. The head is shown quite large, and you can examine the features in detail. The forehead is average, the wrinkles on the forehead average, the eyebrows also average, the eyes, the nose, the mouth, the chin. The face is not merely devoid of expression, it fails even to leave a memory. It has no individuality. I have only to shut my eyes after looking at it to forget the face. I can remember the wall of the room, the little heater, but all impression of the face of the principal figure in the room is blotted out. I am unable to recall a single thing about it. This face would never be made the subject of a painting, not even of a cartoon. I open my eyes. There is not even the pleasure of recollecting. Of course, that's the kind of face it was, to state the matter in the most extreme terms. When I open my eyes and look at the photograph a second time, I still cannot remember it. Besides, it rubs against me the wrong way and makes me feel so uncomfortable that in the end I want to avert my eyes. I think that even a death mask would hold more of an expression, leave more of a memory. That effigy suggests nothing so much as a human body to which a horse's head had been attached. Something ineffable makes the beholder shudder in distaste. I've never seen such an inscrutable face on a man. That is the prologue for No Longer Human. And you can't sit here and go, oh, well, that's like a... It's not. It is not an exaggeration. And these journals, which you soon come to find that these journals are basically Yozo's diary. These journals are Yozo's diary. Like, it's not good. It's so upsetting, and I don't know how to explain it. There's this passage that I keep reading, and it keeps on making me more and more angry as I read it. And it starts from 25 and it goes to 26. And this is pages 25 to 26. This is the beginning of the book, guys. When you start with the prologue, you're just like, well, damn. Can't be that bad, it's that bad. It is that bad. It is so bad. Oh my gosh. But I wonder if I have actually been happy. People have told me, really more times than I can remember, ever since I was a small boy, how lucky I was. But I've always felt as if I were suffering in hell. It has seemed to me, in fact, that those who called me lucky were incomparably more fortunate than I. I have sometimes thought that I have been burdened with a pack of 10 misfortunes, any one of which, if borne by my neighbor, would be enough to make a murderer of him. I simply don't understand. I have not the remotest clue what the nature or extent of my neighbor's woes can be. Practical troubles, griefs that can be assuaged if only there is enough to eat. These may be the most intense of all burning hells, horrible enough to blast to smithereens my 10 misfortunes. But that is precisely what I don't understand. If my neighbors manage to survive without killing themselves, without going mad, maintaining an interest in political parties, not yielding to despair, resolutely pursuing the fight for existence, can their griefs really be genuine? Am I wrong in thinking that these people have become such complete egoists and are so convinced of the normality of their way of life that they have never once doubted themselves? If that is the case, their suffering should be easy to bear. They are the common lot of human beings and perhaps the best one can hope for. When I tell you, this made me so inexplicably angry. so inexplicably angry. How full of yourself do you have to be? For one, right? How full of yourself do you have to be that you don't give a shit about other people? Sure, it can just be like apathy or a mental illness that does that. I know plenty of mental illnesses that do it. I don't want to misname them, so I'm not going to say it. Sometimes you can only afford to think of yourself. But, like, what I genuinely don't understand is the fact that this man cares so much about other people's opinions. Because that's the entire fucking book. He finds himself alienated because he can't, like, compare himself to other people, and he becomes a quote-unquote clown to then connect with other people. And he fails in doing so terribly, multiple times. He ends up becoming a communist because he followed someone, because he wanted to be more human-like. He wanted to make sure this person didn't know that he was a quote-unquote alien, that he was not an actual human being. He's an actual human being, he's just too deep in his own head. And I can't be angry at him entirely. Because, like, we all have moments where we don't think of ourselves as the same as other people. I know I've had times where I think of myself as so inexplicably upsetting and disturbing and absolutely just like the most terrible lot of human beings. That I am the most terrible. But that doesn't stop me from caring about others. And in the book, he full on goes so many lengths to basically compare, to make sure that everyone around him is happy, even though he is literally pushing everyone away and making everyone else feel terrible just by being around him. Oh, no. There we go. When I tell you, when I tell you this man makes me so angry. OSAMU DAZAI does a fantastic job at making sure that we all know that, you know, Yozo is not okay. There is a moment in time where just very, very casually mentioned, like, that he was, like, I can only imagine that there was one, I'm trying to find it. It was about the servants in his house, right? He talks about God and there's not there. I'm pretty sure, it's one about his like, there was a moment he mentions his servants in his house and the fact that they had corrupted him. I think that was the like oh, here's one thing that he says. I thought, as long as I can make them laugh, it doesn't matter how, I'll be alright. If I succeed in that, the human beings probably won't mind too much if I remain outside their lives. The one thing I must avoid is becoming offensive in their eyes. I must be nothing, the wind, the sky. My activities as jester, a role born of desperation, were extended even to the servants, whom I feared even more than my family because I found them incomprehensible. Insanity. And it was just... it was insane. And I just... it was... where is it? It was so... it was... where is the one... here it is. My true nature, however, was one diametrically opposed to the role of mischievous imp. Already by that time I had been taught a lamentable thing by the maids and manservants. I was being corrupted. I now think that to permeate such a thing on a small child is the ugliest, vilest, cruelest crime a human being can commit. But I endured it. I even felt as if it enabled me to see one more peculiar aspect of human beings. I smiled in my weakness. If I had formed the habit of telling the truth, I might perhaps have been able to confide unabashedly to my father or mother about the crime. But I could not fully understand even my own parents. To appeal for help to any human being, I could expect nothing from that expedient. Supposing I complained to my father or my mother, or to the police, the government, I wondered if I would not be argued into silence. I wondered if in the end I would not be argued into silence by someone in good graces with the world, by the excuse of which the world approved. It is only too obvious that favoritism inevitably exists. It would have been useless to complain to human beings, so I said nothing of the truth. I felt I had no choice but to endure whatever came my way and go on playing the clown. This part of the book literally broke me, because he already sees himself as an alien even in his youth. And sure, you can do that. That's fine. I'm not going to stop you from feeling the way you feel. And sure, things are bad, and sometimes things don't go the way you want them to or how they should be going. But what sucks is that reminds me of me. And I don't want to go into detail on why, but that specific thing says, hey, the maids and manservants, the servants of this house, were sexually assaulting him or harassing him on a constant basis, and they got away with it only because DAZAI believed that human beings would take the side of human beings and that he was not human. And that's such a thing to come across. Like, huh? What? What do you mean by that? It's so upsetting to read and to listen to. And then later he gets a friend, like his only friend. And this person sees him for him. He knows he's faking it. And he is the only person who sees the true Yozo. I almost said DAZAI. The true Yozo. And Yozo starts pushing this man away from him. And it's so upsetting. Because this person wants to get to know you. And you want to convince this person that this act that you know is an act. You want to push this person away from knowing that this act is an act, even though this person is literally opening his arms for you to actually come out of your shell and become an actual person. But you let your fear of your own alienation that you conjured in your own fucking head get the better of you and denied your only chance at real friendship. And then DAZAI goes on to realize, not DAZAI, Yozo goes on to realize that, oh, he likes art because his friend did art too. And Yozo is like, oh, this will get me closer to human beings. And he does it, and his friend is like, ooh, I like that. And it's a very, like, abstract, grotesque painting. But Yozo finds that he likes it. He likes drawing. He likes painting. He starts going into college for art. He drops out of college, makes friends with somebody who's a communist and a really bad influence, starts doing drugs and cigarettes, and just completely falls off. He uses his funds for schooling on these drugs, and it's so upsetting. And then he gets arrested, tries to kill himself, gets arrested again. And then he gets put into one of his father's friends' houses, and his father's kind of disowned him. And at some point, he gets a wife. And this girl, sweetest girl in the world. I don't know how she ended up with Yozo. I feel so bad for her. But she ended up with Yozo. And you know, one other thing that makes me really, really angry about Yozo is that after he marries this girl, she's a sweet girl, she loves him dearly, and he brings one of his friends over, she's being hospitable, she's being really nice. His friend, his quote-unquote friend, goes and assaults her, and he watches. And then he blames her. When I tell you, I wish I was joking. It's like he blames her for her own assault that he watched happen. And then he gets into an affair with this other girl, and I think they went and killed themselves together. And he gets... he's in such a bad situation by the end of the third notebook, because there's 3 notebooks. And his father's dead, he's taking drugs, he tried, his wife stopped him from overdosing. And it was so bad, And then there's the epilogue. I never personally met the madman who wrote these notebooks. However, I have a bare acquaintance with the woman who, as far as I can judge, figures in these notebooks as the madam in the bar of Kyobashi. She is a slightly built, rather sickly looking woman with narrow, tilted eyes and a prominent nose. Something hard about her gives you the impression less of a beautiful woman than of a handsome young man. The events described in the notebooks seem to relate mainly to the Tokyo of 1930 or so, but it was not until about 1935 when the Japanese military clique was first beginning to rampage in the open that friends took me to the bar. I drank highballs there 2 or 3 times. I was never able, therefore, to have the pleasure of meeting the man who wrote the notebooks. However, this February I visited a friend who was evacuated during the war to Funabashi in Chiba Prefecture. He is an acquaintance from university days and now teaches at a women's college. My purpose in visiting him was to ask his help in arranging the marriage of one of my relatives, but I thought while I was at it I might buy some fresh seafood to take home to the family. I set off for Funabashi with a rucksack on my back. Funabashi is a fairly large town facing a muddy bay. My friend had not lived there long, and even though I asked for his house by the street and number, nobody seemed able to tell me the way. It was cold and the rucksack hurt my shoulders. Attracted by the sound of a record of violin music being played inside a coffee shop, I pushed open the door. I vaguely remembered having seen the madam. I asked her about herself and discovered she was in fact the madam of the bar in Kyobashi I had visited 10 years before. When this was established, she professed to remember me also. We expressed exaggerated surprise and laughed a great deal. There were many things to discuss without even resorting, as people always did in those days, to questions about each other's experiences during the air raids. I said, "You haven't changed a bit." "No, I'm an old woman already." I quake at the joints. "You're the one who really looks young." "Don't be silly, I've got 3 children now. I've come today to buy them some seafood." We exchanged these and other greetings appropriate to long-separated friends and asked for news of mutual acquaintances. The madam suddenly broke off to ask, in a rather different tone, if by any chance I had ever known Yozo. I remember I answered that I never had, whereupon she went inside and brought out 3 notebooks and 3 photographs which she handed to me. She said, "Maybe they'll make a good material for a novel." I can never write anything when people force material on me, and I was about to return the lot to her without even examining it. The photographs, however, fascinated me, and I decided after all to accept the notebooks. I promised to stop by again on the way back and asked her if she happened to know where my friend lived. As a fellow newcomer, she knew him. Sometimes, in fact, he even patronized her shop. His house was just a few steps away. The night after drinking for a while with my friend, I decided to spend the night. I became so immersed in reading the notebooks that I didn't sleep a wink till morning. The events described took place years ago, but I felt sure that people today would still be quite interested in them. I thought that it would make more sense if I had some magazine to publish the whole thing as it was, rather than attempt any clumsy improvements. The souvenirs of the town I could get for my children were some dried fish. I left my friend's house with my rucksack still half empty, and stopped by the coffee shop. I came to the point at once. "I wonder if I could borrow these notebooks for a while." "Yes, of course." "Is the man who wrote them still alive?" "I haven't any idea. About 10 years ago, somebody sent me a parcel containing the notebooks and the photographs to my place in Kyobashi. I'm sure it was Yozo who sent it, but he didn't write his address or even his name on the parcel. It got mixed up with other things during the air raids, but miraculously enough, the notebooks were saved. Just the other day I read through them for the first time. Did you cry? No, I didn't cry. I just kept thinking that when human beings get that way, they're no good for anything. It's been 10 years. I suppose he may be dead already. He must have sent the notebooks to you by way of thanks. Some parts are rather exaggerated, I can tell, but you obviously suffered a hell of a lot at his hands. If everything written in these notebooks is true, I probably would have wanted to put him in an insane asylum myself if I were his friend. It's his father's fault, she said unemotionally. The Yozo we knew were so easygoing and amusing, and if only he had drunk. No, even though he did drink, he was a good boy, an angel. If you read the notebooks, you know he's not a good person. Oh, gosh. It makes me so upset. It makes me so angry. We're not taking off the jacket, guys. That was bad. That was a mistake. We don't take off jacket here. And I want to do more things about the books. I might make it a series I do that I record and upload to YouTube. So I don't lose my mind entirely, although I will, reading the books themselves. But if we go to Schoolgirl, right, the first book, right, and read the first page, well, the preface, don't know. The confessional strain runs so vibrantly throughout the novellas, short stories, and novels of DAZAI OSAMU that it is next to impossible to read his works without being reminded of his immense self-loathing, guilt over his bourgeoisie upbringing, eventual bitter falling out from the Marxist Party, and multiple double suicide attempts that only after his partners were less luckily finally succeeded. Indeed, the themes woven into the woof and weft of his literary tapestries were so obviously cut from the fabric of his life that even when he amused the guise of a mawkish female schoolgirl, readers have no trouble seeing through the flimsy veneer. Absolutely insane. Like it starts like that. And that's just the preface. Like, it's Schoolgirl, we actually start now. Wow, we actually start now. Waking up in the morning is always interesting. It reminds me of when we're playing hide and seek. I'm hidden, crouching in the pitch dark closet, and suddenly Deco throws open the sliding door, sunlight pouring in as she shouts, "Found you!" And the dazzling glare followed by an awkward pause, and then my heart pounding as I adjust the front of my kimono and emerge from the closet, I'm slightly self-conscious, and then suddenly irritated and annoyed. It feels familiar, but no, not quite like that. Somehow even more unbearable. Sort of like opening a box, only to find another box inside. So you open that smaller box again, and there's another box inside. And you open it, and one after another, there are smaller boxes inside each other. So you keep opening them, 7 or 8 of them, until finally what's left is a tiny box the size of a small die. So you gently pry it open to find nothing. It's empty. More like that feeling. Anyway, it's a lie when they say your eyes just blink awake. Bleary and cloudy, then, as the starch gradually settles to the bottom of the skim rises, and the skim rises to the top. At last, my eyes wearily open. The morning seemed forced to me. So much sadness rises up I can't bear it. I hate it, I really do. I'm an awful sight in the morning. My legs feel so exhausted that already I don't want to do a thing. I wonder if it's because I don't sleep well. It's a lie when they say you feel healthy in the morning. Mornings are gray, always the same, absolutely empty. Lying in bed each morning, I'm always so pessimistic. It's awful, really. All kinds of terrible regrets converge at once in my mind. My heart stops as I writhe in agony. Mornings or torture. Father, I tried calling out softly, feeling strangely embarrassed and happy. I got up and hastily folded up my bedding. As I hoisted it, I was startled to hear myself exclaim, "Alley-oop?" I've never thought that I was the kind of girl who would utter such an unrefined expression as alley-oop. It seems like the kind of thing an old lady would shout. Alley-oop? It's disgusting. Why would I have said such a thing? It's as if there were an old lady somewhere inside me, and it makes me sick. I'll have to be careful from now on. I became deeply depressed then, like the time I was repelled by a stranger's uncouth gait, only to realize I was walking in exactly the same manner. I never have any confidence in the mornings. That was 3 pages. 3 pages, guys, and we're already neck deep in it. And I'm going to be reading these. And then I'm going to be having my notes and stuff, but it's, oh gosh. Let's go through like the first 3 pages of each. Hee hee. A Shameful Life. So this is A Shameful Life. This, I opened it, right, to read it. Preface. I've seen 3 pictures of him. What do you mean by that? This starts exactly as No Longer Human No, this is literally just... This is literally the same preface from No Longer Human. What the fuck? Yeah, it starts as the first journal. Hold on, hold on, hold on, hold on. It's different. Oh my gosh. Here it is. In the end, I just don't understand. I cannot understand the kind of degree or suffering that other people experience. Perhaps their practical suffering, the kind relieved by eating, is in fact the most extreme form of suffering. Perhaps it is suffering so ghastly, like the tortures of the deepest circles of hell, that my dozen curses pale into insignificance beside it. I don't know yet. I don't know. Yet, if that were the case, how do they endure it? How do they make it through each day without succumbing, without despairing, without committing suicide, even as they go on arguing about politics? Could they be such thoroughgoing egoists, so certain this is the way things are supposed to be, that they have never once doubted themselves? If so, I suppose it might be easier to bear. I wonder if that is simply the way human beings are, and that is what makes them happy. This is just No Longer Human. This is just... Hold on. This is literally just no longer human. What the fuck? This is why I need to do research before I start doing shit. A shameful life. That's why no longer human comes up. Also translated as a shameful life. So this is just a different... At least now I have two interpretations of no longer human. I might lose my mind. Anyway. The flowers of buffoonery, guys. I might lose it. I'm going to lose it. I will lose it. I will lose it. I'm sorry. I opened the book. First sentence, welcome to sadness. Population 1. Thanks, bestie, what? All of my friends have left me. They look back at me with eyes of pity. Come back, friends. Let's talk together, laugh together. But no, you turn away as if we've never met up. Speak up, friends. Ask away. I'll tell you anything. It was me. These are the hands that pulled Sono underwater. In my satanic insolence, I prayed for my salvation in the same breath that I prayed Sono would die. Shall I go on? But why bother, friends, if you'll only look at me with pity in your eyes? Yozo Oba sat on the bed, staring at the sea, a sea clouded with rain. As if waking from a dream, I reread these first few lines and want to disappear into their ugliness and obscenity. But there I go again with my ridiculous exaggerations. To begin, why is Yozo Oba? Who is this Yozo Oba character? I wrote him into being, drunk on a substance far more potent than alcohol. There could be no better name for my protagonist, Oba. Flawlessly encapsulate his vigorous spirit, while Yozo, I must say, has pizzazz. DAZAI said, pizzazz. Oh my gosh. It conveys a certain freshness, to be accessed only if one sinks into the depths of the old-fashioned. Not to mention the phonic harmony of those four vowel sounds in a row. Yozo Oba. Have I not already dazzled you with my creations? Well then, feast your eyes on Yozo Oba, a protagonist seated on the bed and staring at a sea clouded with rain, as dazzling a creation as they come. Enough. Shame on me for making such a mockery of myself. Blame it on my wounded pride. The fact is that my fear of being ridiculed is so intense I'd rather beat my critics to the punch. That's the epitome of cowardice. I must find a way to be more modest. Humility. Yozo Oba. Go ahead and laugh. He is a crow dressed as a cormorant. The perceptive will perceive what I am up to. Sure, I could have come up with a better name, but I guess I can't be bothered. I might have skirted the whole issue by writing this in the first person, but the past spring I wrote a novel with a first-person narrator, so I'm hesitant to do another one so soon. Besides, if I were to drop dead tomorrow, we can't be sure some smart aleck wouldn't set forth the sage opinion that without a first-person narrator, the novel never would have worked. And if I'm honest, this is my only reason for letting Yozo Oba survive, as you find him here. You think that's odd? Well, right back at you, friend. He hates himself so much. Damn. That's a thing. That's a thing that we decided to read today. Holy shit. That was, like, the preface again. That was the preface, bitch. Let's go to the setting sun real quick before I go to self-portraits. Snake starts, which is Okay. Chapter 1. Snake. Mother uttered a faint cry. She was eating soup in the dining room. I thought perhaps something disagreeable had gotten into the soup. A hair? I asked. No. Mother poured another spoonful of soup into her mouth as if nothing had happened. This accomplished, she turned her head to the side, directed her gaze at the cherry tree in full bloom outside the kitchen window, and, her head still averted, fluttered another spoonful of soup between her lips. Mother eats in a way so unlike the manner prescribed in women's magazines that it is no mere figure of speech in her case to use the word flutter. Naoji, my younger brother, once said to me when he had been drinking, just because a person has a title doesn't make him an aristocrat. Some people are great aristocrats who have no other title than the one that nature had bestowed on them, and others like us, who have nothing but titles, are closer to being pariahs than aristocrats. Shima, for example, mentioning one of his school friends' account, doesn't he strike you as being more vulgar than any pimp you might meet in the streets? That damned fool wore a tuxedo to his cousin's wedding. Even supposing there was some necessity for him to appear in that outfit, it made me want to puke just to hear the highfalutin language the idiot saw fit to use when making a table speech. That kind of affection is a cheap front, which has nothing whatsoever to do with refinement. Just the way there used to be signs around the university saying high-class lodgings. Most of what passes for the aristocracy might actually better be called high-class beggars. The real aristocrats don't put on silly airs like that Iwashima. Mom is the only one in our family. She is the genuine article. There's something about her none of us can match. Take the matter of eating soup. We went from one thing really odd to a weird rant back to the mother eating soup. What? I don't understand. It's weird. Take the matter of eating soup. We are trained to lean slightly over the plate to take up a little soup with the spoon held sideways, and then to bring it to our mouth, still holding the spoon sideways. Mother, on the other hand, lightly rests the fingers of her left hand on the edge of the table and sits perfectly erect, with her head held high and scarcely so much as a glance at the plate. She darts the spoon into the soup, and like a swallow, so gracefully and cleanly no one can really use the simile, brings the spoon to her mouth at a right angle and pours the soup between her lips from the point. Then, with innocent glances around her, she flutters the spoon exactly like a little wing, never spilling a drop of soup or making the least sound of sipping or clinking the plate. This may not be the way of eating soup that etiquette dictates, but to me it is most appealing and somehow really genuine. As a matter of fact, it is amazing how much better soup tastes when you eat it, as Mother does, sitting serenely erect, than when you look down into it. But being, in Naoji's words, a high-class beggar and unable to eat with Mother's effortless ease, I bend over the plate in the gloomy fashion prescribed by proper etiquette. That's something. Oh, that's fun. That's so fun. It's so fun. And then there's self-portraits. Stories by OSAMU DAZAI. So there's a lot. Whoop. Translator's introduction. No. No. Self-portraits. My elder brothers. When my father died, my eldest brother was 25 and had just graduated from university. My second brother was 23, the third 20, and I was 14. My elder brothers were also kind to me and so grown up and sophisticated that I scarcely felt the loss of my father. The eldest was exactly like a father to me, and the second oldest like a long-suffering uncle, and I let myself be thoroughly pampered by them. However stubbornly selfish my demands, they would always smile and let me have my way. They told me nothing of what was going on and allowed me to do as I pleased, but they could hardly have been having an easy time of it themselves. Looking over the millions my father left behind and trying to keep a grip on the political influence he'd accumulated, with no uncles or anyone of the sort to rely on, my two eldest brothers had no choice but to join forces and struggle along as best they could. At only 25, the eldest became town mayor, and at the age of 31, after gaining a bit of experience in the political world, he was elected to be the prefectural assembly. He was said to be the youngest prefectural assemblyman in the nation, and such was his popularity that the newspapers called him the Prince Kanoe of Aomori Prefecture and even featured him in cartoons. In spite of his acclaim, however, my eldest brother always seemed rather gloomy. His heart wasn't in politics. His bookshelves were crammed with the complete works of Oscar Wilde and Ibsen and volumes of various Japanese playwrights. He wrote himself plays, and when from time to time he assembled all the brothers and sisters in one room and read a new work to us, his face would light up with genuine pleasure. I was too young to understand very well, but it seemed to me that most of his plays shared a common theme of sorrows of fortune. I can still clearly recall, down to the expressions on their faces, the characters in one of the plays, a long one, called The Struggle. When my eldest brother was 30, our family published a little literary magazine with the peculiar title Green Boy. My third elder brother, who was then in the sculptural department at a fine arts college, acted as editor. He came up with the title himself and seemed quite proud of it, and he also designed the cover in an incomprehensible surrealistic mess coated with a liberal sprinkling of silver dust. My eldest brother contributed an essay to the first issue. He entitled it Rice, and rather than write it down himself, he dictated it to me. I still remember it well. We were in the Western-style room on the second floor. My brother clasped his hands behind his back and peered up at the ceiling as he paced about and said, "Ready? I'm going to start. Are you ready?" "Yes." "I'll be 30 this year." Confucius says that at 30 he stood firm, but I, for one, far from standing, feel as if I'm about to collapse. I no longer have a tangible sense that my life is worth living. One might even say that, except for the moments I'm eating rice, I'm not really alive. I use the term rice here not as an abstraction or symbol for life, or the will to live, but as exactly as the word signifies, a heaping bowl of rice. I'm referring to the sensation I have when I chew a mouthful of those fluffy white grains. It's an animal sort of satisfaction. There's nothing lofty about this. I was only a middle school student, but as I scrawled down the infusion of my eldest brother's feelings, I felt so sorry for him, I could hardly stand it. For all the mindless flattery, calling him the Kanoe of Aomori and whatnot, no one really knew the loneliness inside him. I'm reading all of these, guys. Y'all might not see me. I'm going to be reading all of these, because if I don't, I feel like it's a disservice to me and everything I stand for. Because, like, No Longer Human, right, has had such a profound impact on me in the way I view the world, even though I hate it. Like, genuinely, it is such a good book that even though I absolutely despise it, and I despise Yozo, the book itself has made it seem so incomprehensible. It's opened up a world, and I don't know how to explain it entirely, but I'm going to be trying to find all of the but the OSAMU, all the OSAMU DAZAI books that I can find, and try to put them all together and understand. And I will be taking notes, and I will probably make this a series on YouTube. However, it is time for me to go. And I wish you all a fantastic rest of your day. And thank you for indulging me in this rant about OSAMU DAZAI. Bye-bye!